Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, the podcast where sales strategy meets real-world execution. In today's episode, Kevin and Sean reveal the simple yet powerful math behind scaling your sales team, starting with a metrics matrix that every leader should be using. You'll learn how to reverse engineer your sales goals, calculate customer acquisition cost, and align your headcount with growth targets. If you're serious about building a sales organization that performs with precision, this episode is the beginning of your blueprint.
Keeping score is important, really important. I'm talking like March Madness final game important. We're racing into Q2 right now, and you should be looking at your Q1 performance. Hope you're ahead, hope you're at least flat, but if you're behind, this is really for you. And here's a crib notes kind of moment. If you're ahead, this episode's for you too. This episode is all about keeping score and knowing your numbers as a sales leader. The end point of this is hopefully you will have a matrix in your mind that you can translate into something like an Excel document that helps you see where you are and where you need to grow. I'm going to dive in here for a minute and talk about why people need to know their numbers, not just the revenue or the profit number. So let's paint the picture of where you might be in your business. I'm assuming that you have yourself or a few salespeople. Maybe they're in different sales divisions, but let's hold that at bay for a moment. If I'm waking up in your shoes and I'm saying, where's Kevin going with this? I want to take you from today, a current state, to 1, 3, and 5 years out, and figuring out when do you pull your strategic levers in your sales team. And that's both a headcount statement, a market territory growth statement, a product offering statement, and a pricing statement. So if you're starting to push this around in your brain, you're starting to get current status, things I need to measure down the left-hand column, years, I'm going to measure them across the right-hand column, and let's put some numbers to that. So if your goal is $1 million this year, and you think each of your sales reps can sell $500,000 a piece, that's great. Now you've got 1 million as the goal, $500,000 each. How many transactions does a salesperson need to do for you to reach their quota? You start doing some division here and you say, I think they're going to do an average of this many per month or this many per customer or this segmentation of my customers, because some buy big, some buy regularly and small, some buy full market basket. There's a lot of variables. I want to encourage you to pause before you let your brain get too wild and crazy. Let's go with a simple average. How many transactions did you do total? Divide that number into how many dollars did you sell? That's your average transaction, whether you're selling one washer or one truck, one whatever. It's an average transaction size. Because over the 3 and 5 year period, we're really just measuring averages. There'll be some details to manage, but averages are going to get this conversation started for you. So if sales rep 1 and sales rep 2 sell an average of $1,000 per transaction, how many do they need to sell to get a $500,000 quota? It becomes pretty simple math. If you've got a $500,000 quota and an average transaction size of $1,000, you need 500 transactions per salesperson. Divide that by 12 months, assuming no seasonality, and you've got a pretty straight line between those 500 transactions. Divide that by 12, and you end up with how many do you need per month per salesperson. All of you out there in listener land, I bet you have some variability, and this is where you take your native knowledge and make the adjustments. But again, over 12 months, $1,000 per transaction, you can quickly get to that $500,000. Now, you may say, what is my average margin? Do that calculation. I've got 2 salespeople. How many team members does it take per salesperson to serve each transaction? Now we've got a head count related to sales. How much of their time is spent selling and marketing and all the other factors. Now, regardless of all those other factors, you need to have a back of the napkin understanding of your numbers to say it takes 3 support staff per salesperson, maybe that's 1 delivery, 1 inside sales and 1 accounting, to serve that 500 transactions. What if your goal in 3 years is $3 million? If your same numbers hold, you should be able to know that you need 6 salespeople at $1,000 per average transaction times $500, 500 transactions, gets you to that same quota. Has your market changed? Will it change? What are you forecasting? All these things should be part of the numbers because you're studying your market. Until we wrap our mind around all of those things, it's hard to figure out how to effectively grow and when to grow up in a market. In 2 years, do I add 2 people and it takes them a year to ramp up to the 500 transactions? Sean, I just gave people a loose framework on how to think through their business metrics. Some people are light years ahead of us, but let's straddle the fence here and catch people up and give people something useful to go forward.
I like to ask the question, have you ever thought about going on Shark Tank? So when I'm talking to a customer, when I'm talking to a client, I'm talking to somebody that's out there and they're saying, hey, Sean, I want to grow. I want to increase my revenue. I usually sometime in the conversation said, have you ever thought about going on Shark Tank? Because when we have the conversation, I ask them about their numbers and they don't know their numbers. And I go, do you realize that if you went on Shark Tank, and everybody has watched the show, it's a fairly common show among business owners and entrepreneurs that I'm talking to, young company people, they like to watch Shark Tank. It's an enjoyable thing. It's their world. Inevitably, almost every show, at least a couple shows per season, they throw somebody out. They're much more polite than that, but that's essentially what they're doing because they don't know their numbers. And there's some really simple ones. Like I usually ask when I talk to a client, what is your customer acquisition cost? On an annual basis, how much does it cost you to acquire a customer? And it's really easy math. Take everybody in sales, take everybody in marketing, take the portions of all those marketing and sales back-end people that have to do that support. So the percentage of the person in accounting, the percentage of the person that's doing the purchase order entry, blah, 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 right? So you take all those people, you take all those percentages of people that are part of that process, add them all up, figure out what you've paid them, figure out what their budget was for all the marketing stuff and your CRM system, all that stuff, put all that stuff into a big bucket, add it all up. That's your cost for the year. How many customers did you add last year? Just do that simple division. That's your customer acquisition cost. It's a really simple number. You can do that for last quarter. You can do that for last year. If it takes you more than 20 minutes to figure out this information, then you need a better bookkeeping system. And I can't help you with that. But you need to know how much does it cost you to acquire 5 customers or 10 customers or 100 customers? Because as Kevin was talking about, if you want to triple the size of my company in the next 5 years, then you really need to know what your customer acquisition costs are. At least at that high level, have that answer. And you know what? If you ever get the chance to stand in front of Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Cuban on a carpet with cameras, you are going to be in trouble because you absolutely need to know those numbers. You need to know how much it takes to grow your company. You need to know how you're going to increase your revenue and why you need investment in certain areas. You need to know these things because you are the leader of the company. As the sales leader, and that might be the CEO, that might be the VP of sales, you need to know your numbers. You need to know what your average deal size is. Do you know how long it takes you to get a customer? How many days it takes from the time you find out about that lead, you find that company, how long does it take on average to close the deal? Your CRM system should be able to solve that problem. And you really need to focus on that. So I say that because you need to figure out how to be successful.
Sean, let me interrupt you here for a second. I think there's something that the listeners might want to know more about. When you talked about the total customer acquisition cost, can you kind of lean into that and talk about all customers, current customers, or just brand new customers when you're thinking about that total spend?
Good question. Thank you very much, Kevin, for putting that out to me. So customer acquisition cost is customer acquisition. So it is the new customers that you had in that period that you are counting that revenue or that cost up. So if you're counting it for a quarter, how many new customers did it take to bring in that quarter's worth of new customers? The same thing. So it is the new customers, not your existing customers. And that also is going to feed into, is it really profitable? Do you need to reduce that customer acquisition cost in order to be profitable because the customer wasn't profitable at that level, right? Or, wow, we are really profitable at bringing in new customers. Let's pour gas on that fire and make that thing really go. So understanding that number is very important. And it allows you to figure out how to grow your company and how to go after it. Now, one of the things that I hear a lot is at the top line, and that is the economy is just being destroyed. And I don't care if you're upset about the current president or any policies or the war in such and such land or whatever. We always have these geopolitical problems of, I can't grow. There's no way I can grow because the economy is being destroyed. The reality is that's not true. So those things are constantly happening. Yes, we always have new laws. We always have new tariffs. We always have new things. New wars are going off in certain portions, and they cause minor problems for the next couple months. But they don't cause problems at the 3-year and 5-year level. You will still be able to grow at the 3-year and 5-year level. If it's flat for a couple months, then it's flat for a couple months. It bounces back. So ignore the geopolitical problem, but know your numbers and know how you're going to get there. You also should have some idea of your market share. And market share is a hard thing to do, but at a high level, go into some tools that are available online, figure out how many competitors you have, and just do it that way. Just say all my competitors are the same size. You know how many competitors you're going to have in your geography, whether it's United States or all the world or whatever. You have some idea. Say they're all the same size. There's 1,000 of them. Guess what? If there's 1,000 competitors that compete with you, then you have 0.1% market share. Just assume that. It's as simple as that. Just go that way. Kevin, where did I screw up? Where was I too flippant?
I don't think you were too flippant in any area. I think what's really important for any listener to understand is that regardless of where you are in your business cycle or what's happening in the world, you can only control what you can control, right? Unless you're a president right now, you probably have very little influence over foreign policy. It's just a fact of the matter. Unless you're a central bank of a small country, you probably don't have the ability to print money. It's up to you to think through what you're going to do based on what you know about your business. If you know that you have a early salesperson, not a emerging or mature one, you may need to invest more in their learning and development. Back to our initial example of the 500 transactions, $1,000. Maybe they're doing 500 transactions, but their transaction size is smaller because they haven't generated the relationships. What do? You can act and influence as a force multiplier. When you act and influence someone or something, you're exerting that force so they can grow in the way you want them to. It's just like rearing a child. At the very toddler level, you can take a child's head, put your hand on top of it, point it in a different direction slightly, and they'll start walking in that direction because you have gently steered them in the right direction. We want to gently steer our company towards our goals. So the thinking about this process is all about knowing your numbers. And to go all the way back to where we started, we talked about creating a grid of knowing your numbers. So if your goal is to achieve $1 million in sales this year, 2 people, 1,000 total transactions, $1,000 a piece, whatever the numbers are for you, 500 transactions, $1,000 a piece. Whatever those numbers are, in the 3-year factor, what has to change to help you get there? Is it margin? Is it average transaction size? Is it number of people? Is your marketing going to start playing a heavier role in acquiring those customers so that you only need to do 250 transactions to get your same quota as a salesperson? How are you as a leader incentivizing them? Do we need to change our comp plan focus? All of these factors are how you grow your business, and being intentional and strategic, let that run into how you're acting on a week in, week out and quarterly basis to drive your growth. We're right here at the top end of our time. Thank you for letting us dive deep on the numbers and really getting in the weeds on how you're planning to grow. Until next time, happy selling and know your numbers.
What a great episode, Sean and Kevin. I learned a lot about how to break down your customer acquisition cost, one of those deceptively simple metrics that too many sales leaders ignore. Sean laid out exactly how to calculate it by combining the salaries, tools, and marketing spend associated with your sales engine and dividing that by the number of new customers you acquired in a given period. It's not just a number, it's a compass. It tells you whether you're growing efficiently, throwing money away, or ready to scale with confidence. And don't forget the significant actionable item from today's episode. Build your sales metrics matrix this week. It's a powerful tool that forces clarity. laying out your annual revenue goal, average transaction size, and expected quota coverage per rep. It ties your day-to-day performance to long-term strategy in a way that spreadsheets wish they could do on their own. Start it today, before the urgency of your inbox pushes this insight to the bottom of your mental pile. Growth doesn't wait, and neither should your planning. If you ever need expert guidance with sales performance, management, or scaling your business, reach out to Sean or Kevin. Their contact information is in the show notes, along with a quick assessment you can take to see how your sales team is really performing. Don't miss another conversation that could transform your business. Subscribe to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast player. Until next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Happy selling.